Hello, I'm Mike Yeomans, founder of Starlit Contracts, where we help you to negotiate and use contracts with confidence, even if you're not legally trained. This video is part of our Build the Foundation in Contracts program, and our topic is assignment, novation, and transfers. To summarize, an assignment, novation, or transfer is used to describe the transfer of rights or obligations from a party to the contract to somebody who's not yet a party to that contract. Now, whilst there are differences depending on the law that governs the contract, an assignment is often used to describe the transfer of rights from a contract party to another party. A novation is used to describe the transfer of obligations from a contract party to another party, and the word transfer is sometimes used as a synonym to mean either an assignment or a novation. How does it work in practice? Well, contract parties will often agree that if either of them intend to transfer rights or obligations during performance of the contract, then they would need to get the approval of the other party at the time they plan that transfer. On the other hand, if it's already clear that there will be a transfer at some point during performance of the contract, the party who intends to transfer could get the pre-agreement of the other contract party and have that pre-agreement specified in the contract. Is this something that you should care about? Well, it really depends on your contract and what is expected. Do you anticipate already that you're going to need to do some sort of transfer? Or is your company going through some sort of transformative process, some restructuring exercise? If you know that's coming or you expect it might come, then it can be helpful to address it in the contract. If, however, you just have a short-term contract, then it becomes less important. Let's look at a practical example together now. Recently acquired supplier limited signed a long-term contract with customer. The company that acquired the supplier, who we'll call the purchasing company, is transferring the supplier's contract, staff and assets to the purchasing company. What could go right from the perspective of the supplier? Well, it might be that the supplier and the customer pre-agreed in the contract that it would be possible for the supplier to novate its rights and obligations to its parent company. So once the purchasing company had acquired the supplier, that would entitle the supplier to transfer its rights and obligations to the purchasing company without requiring any additional approval from the customer. And what could go wrong from the perspective of the customer? Well, there's potentially a few things. It might be that the purchasing company does not have a good reputation in the market, at least in comparison to the supplier. So the customer might be concerned that this purchasing company just won't do as good a job as the original supplier. It might also be that the purchasing company does not have a credit rating which is equivalent to the supplier, so the customer might be concerned that when they enter into this long-term contract, that the purchasing company might not be able to perform their full obligations over the full duration of that contract. Finally, it can be as simple as the customer just not wanting to work with the purchasing company. Potentially they have contracted before and the customer would not choose to contract with that party again in the future, or there might be a dispute between the two parties and the customer would prefer not to work with that purchasing company until that dispute had been resolved. Let's look at a sample clause and some key considerations now, and to our first option. Neither party can assign, novate, or transfer any part of this agreement to another party without the other party's written agreement. This is the safe option, so every time a transfer is required during performance of a contract, you must obtain the approval of the other party. Let's look at another option for how to approach this clause. A party can assign, novate, or transfer any part of this agreement to an affiliate upon written notice to the other party, provided the affiliate has an equivalent or better credit rating and they are not in dispute with or a competitor of the other party. Now, the first point to note is that in this case, we're talking about a potential transfer of rights or obligations to an affiliate. Now, it might be in your case that you anticipate that there's going to be a transfer to a company that you can mention by name, in which case you just replace affiliate with the name of that company. Now, this sample clause sets a number of preconditions to allowing a transfer. So it talks about the transferee, the recipient of those rights and obligations, having an equivalent credit rating to the contract party, to not being in dispute with the other contract party or a competitor to the other contract party. But again, this is something that you can modify to be appropriate for your deal. Would you want those specific preconditions in there or something in addition? If you know that you're going to have a transfer of rights and obligations during performance of your contract, then consider already inserting a transfer agreement or a novation agreement. You could even have the contract parties sign that novation agreement at the time that the contract is signed. That would mean that during performance of the contract, when you want to fully execute, to formalize, to crystallize that transfer of obligations to a third party, then you would just need to get that third party to sign the document. I hope you found that video helpful, and if so, you can access the entire Build the Foundation in Contracts program on our website starlitcontracts.com. Remember to comment below if there's content that you would like to see in an upcoming video. See you next time.